Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is battling the unfamiliar. Because it's unfamiliar, whether it's good or not, sometimes we are so threatened by the unfamiliarity of something, the newness of something, that we invoke the conditions we were trying to change just because at least we know what to expect with them. So it's an interesting dynamic. And we'll discuss that this morning. And good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning. And everybody else who's joining us, welcome. And before we get started with today's topic, let's take a couple minutes to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And this time, imagine brilliant, bright light, lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, all your electrons, and creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together and vigorously rub our hands together. Feel all those sensations, feel the tickling, the tingling, the pressure, all of it. And allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Good morning, and welcome. Welcome, Jenny. Great to have you here with us this morning. And again, welcome to everybody else who's joining us. So we're talking today about battling the unfamiliar. And this came up out of a session with a client, as so many of these stories do, right? And it was fascinating. It was really, really powerful and fascinating because this person has had experience with a lot of anxiety, and it was fascinating. So what happened was their experience was that there was this man that was sort of a very big man, and he would be screaming in my client's face, telling him that things were going to go terribly, and that they couldn't do anything about it, and really just threatening them on all different kinds of levels. And this is wild because, clearly whatever this image was that was showing up was an incredible bully. And I first asked if my client had ever hollered back at the bully. And we had talked about therapy that they had done at one time where they were, I guess it was some kind of rage therapy. I don't know, but they were counseled to be hitting a pillow with a tennis racket. And so we came up with the idea of just hitting the bully with a baseball bat. And so so the bully's yelling at him, and I guess he hauled off and hit him with a baseball bat, and the bully got smaller, and then the bully disappeared. And I mean, really just disappeared. And the client was kind of in shock that, oh my gosh, where'd he go? Is he really gone? And for a couple minutes, and it was amazing how quick this was. For a couple minutes, he experienced this wonderful spaciousness and felt like he could breathe for the first time in who knows how long. And then they said, I can't believe that he just disappeared, that I hit him with the baseball bat and he went away. And so I said, well, be alert to the language that you're using. You said you can't believe it. So don't take this opportunity to recreate it. I mean, you can, he said, there's all this spaciousness. And then because it's so familiar, he started thinking about dark energies that were hovering in the wings, that were just sort of hiding out on the edges and starting to encroach on that spaciousness. And thankfully, this happened while we were together, because we were able to say, well, why not, instead of those dark energies, instead of pulling them back in because they're familiar, what about pulling in the energies of light that you connect to? And so they started doing that. And, that ended up being their homework, so to speak, is to be connecting with the light energies in that spaciousness, because it created some kind of vacuum. Not only did it create some kind of vacuum, but it was so unfamiliar that almost immediately, like really within 5 minutes of experiencing this spaciousness, they started invoking the thing that they had just relieved themselves of, and the thing that it is their dearest wish to be free of. And I found it so fascinating, because this is not really an anomaly. I think that this is something that many of us do, is we work to make change. And then in the face of that change, we have like a boomerang effect. And what I mean by the boomerang effect is that, we're making progress, and then the old thing resurfaces even more dramatically, with an even louder voice, so to speak. Or we recreate it, we re-invoke it, because it's such a familiar pattern. So it was interesting, because we got into a conversation about epigenetics. And epigenetics, and this is my layperson's interpretation, so please don't take this to the bank, but epigenetics is basically, in my understanding, saying that while we may have genetic predispositions to certain things, we can alter the way that those genes express or don't express by creating certain circumstances, like environmental circumstances, emotional circumstances, the way we think, the beliefs that we hold, that those beliefs and the way that we think end up impacting the way that our genes express. And another aspect of it is that our genetic makeup is essentially a blueprint of where stressors will likely target. So let's say I'm fine, everything seems fine, and then I undergo a profound stress event. If I have a predisposition to certain, genetically predisposition to certain expressions of that, whether it be cancer or heart disease or blood pressure issues or whatever, then it's possible and maybe likely that that's where that stressor will activate in a genetic predisposition. So it's different to say that there's a predisposition to something and saying that that's a sentence for, like that is something that is definitely going to happen. We can mitigate our risk factors through lifestyle in a lot of ways, body, mind, spirit kinds of things. So, it was a very, very interesting conversation. And that part of the conversation also, we were talking about the chemical set. This person was saying, well, what if this anxiety is genetic, and isn't it a chemical imbalance? And so the thing is, again, the layperson's perspective, but the thinking is, again, that yes, anxiety creates a chemical set, as does joy, as does anger, as does fear. There are all these different chemical sets associated with different emotions. And as we become more deliberate, if we become more deliberate in invoking different emotions, then we actually are changing our chemistry. And so it's not, there are times when people are so maxed out and so stressed that they need assistance to get to some kind of more level state to be able to function. But we also can make a lot of change through diet, through exercise, through meditation, through doing things we enjoy, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing is, I believe we become addicted to the chemistry set that is our predisposition. So for me, I was depressed for years and years and years, and there was a chemistry set associated with that depression that made it as unhappy and miserable as I was. It made it a familiar place to be. It was like comfortably uncomfortable or comfortably excruciating. But it was comfortable in that it was really familiar. My body was acclimated to all that chemistry. And so, that would be where I would go if something happened. I would go into depression because the pathways there were so, like super highways. They were so strengthened through experience. So Rosalind says, identity, being void of one, is more threatening than the familiar, even if the familiar is the end of the spectrum we want to change to the more positive side. Exactly. So the notion of letting, like, if we identify with anxiety or we identify with depression, meaning I am depressed, like that's who I am, or I am anxious, or I have an anxiety issue, or I have brown eyes. If whatever those things are, if we identify with those things as our being, um, then to let go of that identity, if to let go of that identity becomes very threatening, because then who am I? If I'm not my brown eyes, if I'm not my career, if I'm not my role in my family, who am I? And the not knowing becomes frightening, even if the things that we think we know are also frightening. They're familiar. So Jenny says, I believe my stage 3 chronic kidney disease has progressed. Well, I hope that that's not true, Jenny. You have such a world of challenges. It's unimaginable to me what it must be to be one human being facing all that you've faced. It's just so much. And when we can create a condition of joy despite our circumstance, sometimes, not always, sometimes our circumstance changes. At least the way that we relate to it can change. This is something that we have power over, is how we relate to our circumstances. And Jenny, I hear you saying that you've had a terrible life. And it's unimaginable to me what you've been through. And you've had a life that has had profound experiences, tremendous experiences, and hopefully, I mean, as horrible as the experiences are, if you can mine them for wisdom, or you can mine them for perspective or compassion, or, because the experiences are the experiences. And all you can do is find some place of peace for yourself that transcends the circumstances. And that's really what the challenge of life is, I think, is to find, and spiritual growth is to, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, to find a place of peace within oneself. And so the way that I move through these circumstances is, again, I think about life as a 10-ticket ride. Some people love horror movies. Some people love to go to the movies and get scared out of their wits and pay good money to do that, right? Some people love to go in the haunted house ride or the roller coaster so that they can get frightened and move past it. And sometimes I think about life as that kind of ride. If we choose the ride that we're on, and I'm not saying that we definitively do, but it's one of my hypotheses, is that we chose the lives that we came here to live. Not as punishment, but as an opportunity to learn, as an opportunity to experience a wide variety of experiences. And make the most of those experiences. I don't know why, but what just came to my mind is the story of a little girl who was born with no legs. And her birth parents, I don't know if they gave her up for adoption, they abandoned her, I don't know what it was, but there was a family who adopted her. And taught this little girl that despite having no legs, that wasn't going to stop her. She was capable of anything. And she became a gymnast of all things. And like a superstar gymnast, which is inconceivable, right? And I guess, this kind of story, this is somebody who took potentially, well, she did have a family that encouraged her and let her know that she could do anything. And not too many of us have that, whether we have legs or not. Not too many of us have had that kind of support from a family. But she did the impossible, like she created a richness in her life that an onlooker would say, like, that's crazy. That's unimaginable that such a thing could happen, And so, Jenny, I pray for peace for you, that you can find that peace regardless of circumstances. I know that when we are depressed, and I was for years, that can take a profound toll on your body. That because it is this toxic chemical set. And so to find the things that give us joy and do those things, it's so important. It's a life-saving action, to find something that you enjoy and give yourself permission to express that urge of your soul. And it's what I see is the more we allow those desires to be expressed, the more we express our creativity, the more we follow our dreams, the more richly we can experience life. And it's all perspective. And when things are so dark and so painful, it's tremendously difficult to find even the little inkling of light to move toward. But it's possible. It's possible. Even though it feels like you might be stuck in the muck and the mire, it's possible to find that light and find ways to expand it, to propagate it. And even if it's unfamiliar, maybe in little doses, you can allow yourself to move into it little by little. It's very challenging to be in a worldview and then to try to shift that worldview. It's challenging, and our pain can be very resilient. You know, our pain can be very resistant to change. Again, because it's so familiar and it's so patterned. So I wish you that spark of light that calls you forward into its expansion. And perhaps we can be that light for others as well. You know, as we recognize it, as we see it, perhaps we can share it. And be willing to step into the unfamiliar. You know, be willing to recognize when we're recreating patterns that are the very patterns we hope to escape. Yeah, so that's it for today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live each weekday morning here on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network, EWN One with the Earth, Enlightened World Living. And until next time, I'm so grateful to you. And I have so much appreciation for your candor and your courage in addressing these questions, having real conversation. And until next time.